same video of the guy who was like, it's basically going to pick up everything, so just turn it down.
Oh, okay, that was exactly the problem. So
that's hilarious.
We'll do a mic. And you don't,
Check. I know, I won't lean into it.
Check. Hello.
Checkity check.
One day I'll hire someone who's like my tech guy.
Yeah.
Until that day.
So that you can just sit and be the host.
Yes. And not have to know anything about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Cool, so that's going.
That is
going. I won't have to touch that again.
Nice.
Usually I put the headphones on, but I'm feeling kind of sweaty today, so I think... It is one of those days, you know?
Yeah.
Just feeling
Spring's
sweaty.
Coming.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, actually I was doing a stopwatch, so that's a good thing I noticed that. There's the timer.
Okay.
Cool. Clear
We're
the
all
mechanism.
Good. We're good.
Got tea.
We got tea?
We got, what are these?
It's cinnamon spice cake.
Cinnamon spice
Even
cake.
though it's not autumn, but there's never, I know, sorry.
Do you have any spring cakes?
Lavender honey cakes? Nope. No, you'll just have
awesome.
to pretend like it's fall.
Well, we can edit it out.
Okay, there you go. You can dub
just
it.
Like, yeah, have
spring.
like, yeah. You're listening to the Reed Fletcher podcast.
Yes.
I'm here with Lindsay Eagar, who is an accomplished author and a mother of two and an awesome person.
An accomplished mother of two.
An accomplished author of three, an accomplished mother of two.
Something like that, yeah.
I was about to tell you my theory of why podcast is so popular.
Yes, I want to hear.
I was thinking, for me, when I started getting into podcasts is when I started spending time alone.
Okay, so when was that? Like what year-ish?
Oh, recently.
Like with the
2017.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay.
Because I lived in Arizona. I was living there because my wife was there. This is before we got engaged. And I didn't really know anyone besides them. And I actually didn't have a job. And so she would work all day. And then at night, I would drive over to her parents' house and we'd hang out at night.
Yeah.
So the drive from where I lived to where she lived, I would listen to podcasts. Yeah. Just kind of got into it and liked it. And my theory was podcast is like, I think maybe it sets off a part in your brain that makes you feel like you're around friends.
Yes.
You know?
Yep.
Like you're not alone in a room.
Yeah.
And also informational and interesting and funny or whatever. But
I think you're right. I think it's partly the excitement that you get when you watch something that's improvised, where you just know that anything can happen, or you imagine that everything is unscripted. Even on podcasts where everything is scripted, it still feels different than an audiobook, which is like already read and read to you. Yeah. It does feel like you're part of a conversation. Yeah, I've really tried. I mean, when you listen to an audiobook or an actor, especially a bad actor, and there's something about the cadence and the way they speak, and it's really hard to mimic normal, like, fluctuation of a voice. Yeah. But you can tell, like, for some reason, there's that instinct when you're listening to a podcast that, oh, this person is just speaking. They're not like Aquila and the Bee. Oh, day one. Yeah. You know, for some reason, you just connect to it a lot more. They don't get into like radio voice, which is like half a pitch lower. Yeah. Radio voice or like excited car salesman, like, hey, everyone, good to hear from you. You know, some podcasters have that voice, though, to be fair. Some like, YouTubers have that too. Yeah. Which is why at my very first podcast, I didn't even want to do an intro. Right. Because it felt so like, you're listening to, Sunday Morning Vibes. Right. 103.9. Right. And so, and then I realized I should probably have a little bit of structure. Right. Are you going to get a jingle ever? Haven't found one that is good enough. Really cheap. Okay. Can you really? Yeah. Audio Jungle. Huh. They're like, you can find one on there for $1. And they have so much. Yeah. And it's yours to do whatever you want with. The jingle that I've been using the most is Mike Super Short Show. But I remember that. I think I might have stolen that from somewhere. And your name's not Mike also. Yeah, so. I think we need to tweak it just a little bit. Or is it the Mike's Super Short Show? It's the Mike's Super Short Show. You're just a guest on the Mike's show. I am just a voyager on the voyage. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and give this a bite. You do that. With you. Yeah. What should I do? Improvise. I just kind of hope the best for you because this is streaming live. So. I used to do a lot of improvisation, actually. It's good, right? Oh, really good. Yeah. I like to bake. No, there's tons. Eat as much as you want.
Do we have Tupperware that I could?
You can take some home. Yes, please do, because then I'll just eat it all weekend. No, in high school I did drama. I was in the drama club at Lehigh High, which was a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if it was by the time you went to high school, but we were like the elite. Like we
right,
got
the
more
cool kids.
We got more funding than the football team.
Right, you were the High School Musical. But
yes, we were
the
super
jocks
cliquish.
were lame.
Yep, exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And
when did you might have gone with my brother. No,
I graduated in 05.
He graduated in 09, so
way later.
Yeah.
Wait, you graduated in 08?
I graduated in
right?
12.
No, in 12. That's
but my
right.
brother graduated.
Oh no, Hannah graduated in 08. Ugh, whatever. Time.
Who cares?
It's so long ago anyway at this point too. No, we always had to do like improvisation units in theater because it's, a skill to learn if you're going to be on the stage. And do you know the number one rule in improvisation?
Is that the just say yes?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I had to do an improv class in junior high school.
Did you like it?
I really liked it.
I bet you were good at it.
It's fun.
Because you seem very like assured of like snap judgments that you just need to make. Like you seem like able to just detach emotionally and be like, I'm just going to go
just
for
whatever.
it. Yeah, I'll deal with the
I might crash later. And burn.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. I remember it was always say yes.
Yes. Because if you say no, then the scene, all the energy just then what are you supposed to do with that?
Yeah.
Then it's just awkward and you're like, okay, I just got denied on stage in front of everyone. All
do you watch The Office?
Yes.
With his improv when he's like, boom,
yes,
boom.
truly like horrifying to watch.
Oh
like
my goodness! And he like whispers in here like,
I have a gun. That's those poor people. There's always somebody like that in drama that like signed up for the class. So you're like, all right, I guess you're one of us.
Okay, I guess you fit in with this. That always say yes thing, as kind of maybe cliche as it sounds, I really actually try to do that. Not to that extent, but not only like in life decisions, obviously not gonna say yes to everything, but just like in a conversation, especially when someone thinks you're gonna say no to something, it's always kind of fun and exciting to say yes. Like, perfect example is it's kind of socially polite a lot of times, especially if you don't know someone really well, to turn down like food, especially if they're paying for it. Well, good example.
Yes.
It's like you're out with your friend and their family and they're like, oh, like, do you want something?
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, no, I'm fine.
Right.
I'm like, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
And it actually, I found it has the opposite effect. I used to think that it would make people uncomfortable, but it actually seems to make people more comfortable.
Sure.
Because now they're like, oh, okay, I guess he's part of our group.
Right.
Because he's eating with us, he's hanging out with us, and he doesn't seem awkward about it.
Right.
So he's just like leveled up in friendship.
It's always awkward to eat in front of somebody too, even when you keep offering it to them and they're like, no. Yeah.
Well, I wonder why that is. There's a lot of polite norms that actually make everyone uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Like, what's the deal with that? Like for example, everyone's eating.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, would you like to eat? You're like, oh, I'll be polite and won't eat. So I'll be uncomfortable because I get to watch everyone eat.
Yep.
And they'll be uncomfortable because now they have to eat in front of me and feel awkward.
Well, and what's the upside? Now they think that I don't eat.
Yeah. It's like
I am superhuman.
I plug into the wall at night.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and a lot of those are very gendered too. Like I was listening to an audiobook recently that talked about the author had all of her teenagers' friends were all over like watching a movie. And she did the mom thing where she came in and was like, hey, who wants snacks? And she said all the boys kept watching the TV and just said, yeah, sounds good. I'm hungry. All of the girls looked at each other and one silently was appointed like the spokesperson and said, no, we're fine. She just was like, how interesting that like and she said the boys looked within and then answered and the girls looked to each other to like decide, how do we want to be seen here? Do we want to be hungry? Is this a safe place for us to be hungry girls or no?
Well, and it makes sense too, because I mean, I don't know if this is true, but it feels like women are a little bit more aware of like social pressures that they put on other people. Mm-hmm. At least my wife is. Yeah. And that's the woman who I base all women off of.
That's fair.
And so like, I won't think about something. Like we'll be at a friend's house till late at night.
Yeah.
And she'll say something to me like, hey, he has to work early in the morning, or like, what if the baby next door hears, or we don't want to eat their last bit of food.
Yeah.
And I'm getting better at it, but I think she was just born with that instinct. And so that's a good example. All the girls are like, hey, are we gonna make the boys feel awkward? Are we gonna make each other feel awkward?
We're gonna make the mom do the work of preparing snacks for us and cleaning up.
Yeah. And then the guys are just like, oh yeah, I'm hungry. Yeah, I'll take some.
Yeah. I don't think we're born with that instinct. I think it's very, very learned and very taught to our boys and girls. Just even the way that, like, I mean, you just barely had a gender reveal for your own baby, and just the differences I remember in saying, oh, we're gonna have a girl. It was either like, oh, bummer, to my husband, like,
who are you gonna play with?
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh man, and even now, my husband has 2 daughters and me, so he lives in a house full of girls and women, and he still has people who are like, oh man, you must need a night out, and he's just like, why would that be any different if it was boys? But the way that we talk about little boys and little girls, it's so gendered from the very, very beginning. It's just interesting how, like, we just set up girls to be caretakers and gentle and pains in the neck, like high maintenance, where you're gonna have to pay for all these weddings or whatever it is, and then boys are rough and tumble. Boys will be boys. I don't know. And it's interesting.
And it happens at a young age, and then it's reinforced as they get older. I mean, boys get more shame for liking things like the colors at their wedding, or something as simple as art. Or design or reading.
Isn't it ridiculous?
It's like, well, why? Even in the most extreme, like masculine, feminine, black, white world, why would those type of things hinder your stereotypical masculine energy? Like,
why is art feminine?
Right. Like, let's say, okay, I'm the most stereotypically masculine guy. Like, I don't know. I like explosions, and I'm a lumberjack.
And raw meat. And
I like raw meat, and I have a big beard.
You've never cried. Yeah.
Right, never cried, never had an emotion except for hunger.
You're Ron Swanson.
Right, exactly. My brother's like that. Yeah. Stuart, shout out. I still, even if we accept that as good or reality, which I don't think we do, even that guy, I still wonder, why would that be bad for that guy to look at art? Why would it be bad for that guy to listen to classical music, or to cry, or to be sensitive? Yeah. I think those can coexist.
Well, those are human emotions. Those are human experiences, but we've co-opted them into these 2 categories. And then the instinct to fit into those categories is the thing that I think we all have the instinct for, not the categories themselves. Yeah. Like, we do want to maintain the status quo. We do want to, like, keep it, like, we want to fit in, so we will suppress whatever parts of our humanity that the world says doesn't fit into this box or this box, and it's scary and sad.
I think the most probably human instinct is to crave connection. Yes. Yep. And so I'm a guy, and I'm in 1st grade, and I think, okay, I want connection. Someone decided that all the boys like this. Yeah. And, people say it's biological, people say it's societal, some mix. I mean, I don't really know. But in any case, I didn't decide. Yeah. But, that peer pressure and everything, in a positive way a lot of the time. It's not like it's all negative. But, you're just conditioned to, okay, let me find like attracts like. Let me find people that I feel are similar to me, because that's my biggest chance for connection.
Right. Yeah, it's true. You see this in the book world a lot with this breakdown of boy books and girl books. There's this myth that boys will only read about boys, and that girls will read whatever, which is why books assigned in school are usually by male authors and about men. But that's not because girls are willing to read whatever. It's because we've taught girls men are the universal character. This is the universal experience. That's why you'll read Ernest Hemingway and Catcher in the Rye and Charles Dickens. But anytime we read a book by a female author or about a female character, suddenly that's niche, and that's just about girls. And there's no way that our boys can connect to that, which really does a service to the girls, first of all, but it does such a disservice to boys to suggest that they will not be able to find anything to relate to in a book about a princess. How is that any different than a book about a prince or a rich guy? Like, and there's been a lot of studies done too about, like, boys, like little boys especially, they don't care. If there's a pink book with a dragon on it and they're into dragons, they don't care that it's pink or that a girl wrote it or that it's a girl dragon. They just want the dragon. But teachers and parents and librarians are like, oh, it's pink though. Let's steer you away from that. And here's this book about, trucks or whatever.
Yeah, I remember even this one specific instance. I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was my mom. Or an aunt or something. And I was just talking about, so I grew up with straight hair. Most people don't know that because when I hit puberty, my hair went curly. Yeah. And it was something I'd always wanted because my older brothers had curly hair and I thought it was cool. And I remember I learned this trick that if I used a specific shampoo, it would curl it even more. Yeah. And I never thought about it. I didn't think it was a traditionally male thing, traditionally female thing. I was like, oh, it's just cool to have curly hair. And I remember I was telling that, I think it was my mom now. So I'm kind of outing her. It wasn't a big deal at all, but I remember telling her that. She said, oh, that's interesting, but don't worry too much about that kind of stuff. It's kind of girly. Like, you don't need to spend time thinking about your shampoo.
Hair and your.
And like, I don't think it wasn't super harmful. It doesn't affect me.
She's doing it in a protective way for you.
Sure. Yeah. But it is interesting, those kind of tiny moments when at that moment I was like, oh yeah, oh, you're right. Yeah, this is a girl thing. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah. Old Spice. Everything connected into one bottle.
Yep. Who cares? Yep.
And yeah, I'm not hurt by it. And I think if I actually cared at this point in my life, I probably would just do it anyway. Right. But it is interesting to use that as kind of like a little tiny example that you can extrapolate. How many things do we assume about ourselves, more personally, but about our gender even, that we got from some totally arbitrary source? Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that about myself. Like, okay, what do I like? I like basketball. I like books. I like, I don't know, whatever. I love movies. Right. And you really want to be able to say that you just like things for their intrinsic value. But when you really think about it, isn't it so weird that the clothes I like are all the same as what all my friends like? Yeah. And the movies I like are all the same as all my parents like. Mm-hmm. And the sports I play are the same that my next door neighbor played.
Have you seen The Devil Wears Prada ever?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Is that
every night?
Is that a sarcastic?
No, just kidding. I have seen it. I watched it in like 2009.
Okay, yeah. So like the scene when
the sweater when she's deconstructing
when Anne Hathaway like chuckles about the difference between cerulean and or the two belts that are so different, and she snickers. And then Meryl Streep is like, oh, you think they're so different. And you think that you're above all of this. But actually, everything in this room, everything you're wearing has been selected for you by the people in this room. Mm-hmm. And you think you're above it. That's how I think a lot of our hobbies and interests, I mean, they are chosen sort of for us. Yeah. Which is scary on one hand, I guess. Just makes you want to be aware of, like, what influences you.
Yeah, like what you actually let in.
Is. Yeah, exactly.
I think about that all the time. Like, who do I follow on Instagram? Who do I listen to?
Yeah, where did this idea come from that I just had?
Yes, exactly. Well, it's like a good analogy is like you're singing a song. Yep. And you're like, oh, like I love this song. I just thought of it. And then you look down at your phone and it's playing on an advertisement.
Right, and you're like, oh, yeah. Well, and when you become a parent, like you can see, like every commercial becomes suddenly like the enemy because you're like, quit selling stuff to my kid. Like this is so unfair. Yeah. Everything, just shifts that way.
I used to think when I was younger that marketing didn't work on me. Like I was immune to it.
Really?
And I think a lot of people have that that misunderstanding of what marketing is. Like, oh, you're gonna show, like a Louis Vuitton thing with some famous girl. Like, I'm not gonna fall for that. Right. But then why do you associate it with, that high class? Yeah, why do you associate it with, and over time especially, you think like Campbell's Soup, in all their ads for years, they put in like the word good. Yeah. And so now when people think of Campbell's Soup, they don't think amazing and they don't think cheap and crappy. They think good. Good. Like which was
better than nothing. Right. Good.
Which was intentional because they wanted to get the middle market. Right. And there are soups that are really expensive and there are soups that are really cheap. Yeah. You're like, wait, why am I making that association? Oh, it's because someone else
knew the market.
Yeah, knew the market and told me to think that and I didn't even realize it.
That's interesting.
It is. It's kind of strange. I mean, I have an Apple Watch. I didn't buy it. It was a gift.
You're allowed to buy an Apple Watch. That's okay.
No, but I just wanted people to know that I can't afford an Apple Watch.
Gotcha.
But like I have an Apple Watch, drive a specific car, all those things. Not just material, but that's the easiest one to think about. Mm-hmm. And it's like, where did those ideas come from?
Yeah. Why did you choose that car?
Yeah.
Or why did,
How much of your life do you actually decide? And how much of it is...
That's it. I'm running away to the woods. And
Same.
leaving society.
I'll move in here if you go to the woods.
Okay, yeah, we have a full basement.
I'll just survive off of these guys. These are really good.
Good. They're made with spelt flour, which I'd never heard of until this recipe. But I guess it's like a type of flour that isn't completely broken down, like all-purpose flour.
I just showed her that just now.
So it's like hearty.
My grandfather has a flour company.
Cool.
He started. Yeah.
So
it's called Guate Mush.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really like the name, I'm not going to lie. It sounds a little too much like mush. But
sure.
The guate's cool. I don't know enough about it, but I guess the way he makes it and the properties he has is like you make it into pancakes and stuff like that.
Cool.
And it's healthier for you.
Nice.
Yeah.
Flour. That's good.
So I'm reading this book I think I told you about, Sapiens.
Yes.
And you reminded me of this because you said flour. And one of the things they said is that, so the agricultural revolution was when humans went from hunter-foragers, and like getting berries and killing mammoths, to planting food. And we have thought for a long time that this was our dominance of plant life.
Of the land.
Right, like we as humans, we have finally domesticated wheat because it's just a wild plant. And so now, like, we can control it and we can grow it and we can manipulate it and live off it. But it's interesting that it actually was the opposite. If you think about it kind of abstractly, wheat actually domesticated us.
Yeah.
Because
we found wheat and we're like, oh, we should stay. This is good.
Exactly. Like, oh, this is our new master.
Yeah.
Because before wheat, all of it, we could travel. Actually, we lived a healthier lifestyle.
Sure.
Much more active, eating a variety of foods.
Well, what's healthy, too.
Right.
To be fair. Physically healthier.
Physically healthier. Yeah. But, I mean, a lot of the things that we thought the hunter-foragers had worse, in comparison to the early agricultural humans, they actually had better. Now, you think of us now, like, obviously, if we were hunter-foragers now compared to the vast industrial agriculture we have, like, we're way better off now than thousands of years ago.
Right.
But right when they started, hunter-foragers were a lot better at just living off of their limited resources, whereas the agricultural humans, they relied on wheat.
Sure.
So if wheat died, no, you're fine. You're totally fine.
You're telling me about the agricultural, so it changed everything.
So, and
changed our metabolisms, I'll bet, our relations to day and night.
Yeah, exactly. And it also changed the fact that we were domesticated by wheat.
Yeah.
Because what is domesticating means making something basically stay. Yeah. And now wheat, a random plant, has traveled across the world, is now millions of acres that are cultivated hand and foot every single year. Yeah. We have specific pastures, we have specific time of the year and techniques and everything. And the humans are stuck with the wheat.
So you're saying we need to pay proper respect to our wheat overlords?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Right.
We need to pray to the great wheat king.
That reminds me of something I read years and years ago, probably in high school. And I'm sure it was by some douchey nonfiction writer who was talking about, because I read a lot of that. But he basically was saying, we love to say, he had a Catholic teacher growing up who said, look at the grass. Isn't it wonderful? God made it the most beautiful shade of green because he knew that would be the most pleasing color to our eyes.
Right.
And he as a child was like, well, no. Our eyes developed to, leaving God out of it, but our eyes developed to grass, not the other way around, and to this color. And if the grass happened to be bright purple, we would evolve to be able to handle looking at that too. So it's interesting, so much of the things that we think that we chose again, and just like you were saying, no, we did not choose wheat.
Yeah.
We chose us.
No, exactly. Yeah. And now it's one of the, probably dominating the plant hierarchy all across the world.
Oh, yeah.
With humans bowing down and spending, their lives cultivating it.
Yeah.
What you said was interesting. I think we talked about this a little bit before, but I was learning, again, in this book. It's the only thing I can talk about because I can only remember one book at a time.
That's okay. That's great.
It's good
to read books.
Yeah. It's talking about how myths
Yes.
are basically the foundation for human progression across history.
Yeah.
Because you compare old humans, like Neanderthals, compared to the early Homo sapiens, and really the Neanderthals were better equipped for everything. They were stronger, they were better equipped to the cold. They knew,
for survival.
For survival.
Yeah, sheer survival.
Exactly. But the one thing that they didn't have was they didn't have the ability to think abstract as well as to imagine and to think of collective myths specifically. Yeah. And so the Neanderthals could group by, close intimate relationships. Like, hey, we're in a band of hunters together. Let's go kill a mammoth. We have like 100, 150 relationships because we all live in the same area and so we can work together. But Homo sapiens could actually think of abstract, imaginative myths that allowed them to group, like countries or companies or religions or Boy Scouts or whatever the case may be. Yeah. And that allowed us to all of a sudden dominate every other species because, hey, we're all Christians. Let's go fight in this war. Yeah. All of a sudden, I'm standing on the battlefield with hundreds of people I've never seen, fighting hundreds of people I've never met. Right.
That you have no personal qualms with at all, but you've been adopted into this collective. Yes. Well, that's what myths do, and myths, stories, whatever you want to call them, they create empathy. That is
collective empathy.
Collective empathy, individual empathy. Yeah, they help us understand each other, which is the basis of progression.
Yeah. And so even, you walk into a sports bar, you see a guy wearing his Packers jersey and like, hey, we're best friends.
You just know.
Like, I like the Packers, you like the Packers. All of a sudden,
likes the Packers.
Yeah. And like, see, now we're best friends.
You're best friends.
And it's something good about that. Like you can manipulate that and make it bad.
I was going to say that turns into like tribal warfare really quickly.
Yes, exactly. And that's why, also like you see someone wearing the Cowboys and like, I immediately hate you, whatever, or even racially.
Yes. Yeah.
Think of the myths that we've created around race that have served race. Like for example,
that justify racism and
division. Downey division.
Division. That's the word. It's not even that.
Divisiveness.
Yes, that's what I was going for. I was going to say I was going for a trickier word than all of that. Dividing us.
Yeah, if it even if we said let's use a less cruel term of judging someone. Let's say money. Back in Alabama after the Civil War or whatever, or even in, let's say, the 60s, not even that long ago. Yeah. There were a lot...
Or now, probably.
Right? Yeah. There were a lot of poor black people, and there were a lot of poor white people.
Right.
So if we don't have the myth that white people are just inherently better, then what's the difference between a poor white person and a poor black person? Yep. And so they needed that myth in order to perpetuate racism. So yeah, you're right. It's a double-edged sword. Yeah. I don't know. Do you think the Neanderthals were racist? Probably.
I don't know, because there wasn't that, I don't know when skin color began to, I don't know when that happened in the timeline. And I do know, one thing that people love to say about medieval history, and especially about medieval-based fantasy genre things like Game of Thrones, was, you can't have a black person be the king because they were so racist, or you can't have a woman who was that independent because women couldn't do X, Y, and Z. It was the old times. It was the medieval times. That's like
it's not accurate.
It's not accurate, but we have this idea of what life was actually like, and it's scary to think that we've gone backwards, or that we ever did go backwards at some point. Another example is, do you know, have you ever heard of The Feminine Mystique? Have you heard of that book ever?
Yes.
It's like the punchline feminist text, like everybody likes to joke about, like, oh, go read your copy of The Feminine Mystique. But it's actually a great book. And it actually is, so it was written in the 60s about, or I guess it was written in the 70s, about women in the late 50s and the 60s. Okay. So what happened was this sociologist, Betty Friedan, who is the author, she's great. She noticed women of a specific, class and like mostly white middle class women who had money, husbands, men, nice clothes, good house. They all were coming to their therapist collectively with this kind of like ennui or like sadness. That was when you had like the whole stereotype of moms getting drunk at home or like popping pills, like mommy's little helper, or taking speed or oxys or whatever you need to get through the day. That stereotype comes from this time period. And there's lots of movies and like things that you can probably think of that depict this.
Oh, absolutely.
Women who had everything. They had washing machines, they had dishwashers, they had unlimited free time, and yet they were so sad and just depressed and suicidal. And so she said, she wrote this whole book. The Feminine Mystique is what she named this affliction that was hitting women in this time period. And she just said, okay, in the 20s, the 1910s, the 1920s, the 1930s, we have huge strides for women. We have women voting, owning property, going to school, graduating from college. There's more women at college at that time period. And then World War II hits, and we have this huge surge of women who are like, you know what? Yeah, I do know how to build airplanes. I'll go do it while the men are at war. Or I've been doing it all along. We like to think that like post-World War II, women weren't doing anything, but they were. They always have been.
Yeah.
We need that narrative to keep women where they are now so that we can say, hey, you've come so far. Like, look, it's the 80s. You get a briefcase. You can be a mom and have a job. Like, those narratives keep us without the context of history. But what happened was post-World War II, all these men came home. They wanted their jobs back, but more importantly, they wanted their wives back because they had seen things at war. War was incredibly traumatizing, and they wanted women back at home to make them food, to take care of them, to be the kind of wives that maybe they had always imagined, or the kind of wives that their own mothers were, which is like, ugh, but like, that's just, totally. They wanted people to mother them. And so this huge, I mean, it really was propaganda, this whole idea that, oh, actually going to college is very unfeminine, and you will never find a husband if you are more educated than he is. And you need to choose hobbies that are not reading or developing your mind. Learn how to play tennis with the other girls in the neighborhood. Start a bridge card playing circle. And also, like, you're stuck with too much housework. Here, buy a washing machine. This is when you have all of these appliances that surge. So you have women stuck at home with nothing to do, no hobbies, no career, no college degree, nothing to develop their minds. And then their housework is taken away from them too, because now you push a button and it does 3 hours worth of housework for you, which is great, like wonderful. But what if you knew that was your purpose? And then suddenly so you have these unfulfilled women. So that's a great example of like, we went backwards, because then for the next couple decades, it took us forever to get back to the point where we had more women going to college than men, or women just believing that they could go to college. It's just so fascinating. Like, we skip over that in history. We always get stuck somewhere in the Industrial Revolution, like every history class.
Whitney,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and then, we're out of time for this semester. But progression is not a forward moving thing all the time. It hitches back depending on who's in power and what buttons they can push to I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I promise. Like, you look at these, it's all a narrative that's fed to us. And sometimes you have to like uncover, like, okay, what is the context? What is the larger context of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually I didn't know that. I didn't know that. You said it was World War II?
World War II.
That prior to World War II, it's as if there was a progression, like we were moving towards...
Women have always done everything. Every job that a man has ever done, a woman has done.
Right. But I didn't realize the hitch that you were saying.
Yeah,
I assumed that before World War II was the same. I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, because you think of the 60s as like this big, huge movement forward into like equal rights and feminism and the sexual revolution and all of this. But a lot of that had already happened in the 1920s.
Well, and you look at the example I just gave too with race, same kind of thing happened.
Oh yeah.
And there's been a lot of examples, but even if you compare in a lot of ways, like different time periods, like right around the 60s and stuff like that, as compared to even earlier than that, it actually got worse for a lot of Black people at that time.
I remember there was something on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. I'm garbage. I know. It's where like all of publishing is, and so I just like cannot quit it.
Yeah, Twitter is just like the smart person's Instagram.
It kind of is, yeah.
That's why I don't do good on Twitter.
It's also horrible. I need to set some better boundaries probably. But no, there was somebody who was like, this is so unrealistic, upset because there was it was the new movie of The Green Knight that has the trailer just barely came out, and it's who's the actor who plays, my brother is going to kill me, who plays Slumdog Millionaire? Dev Patel, is his name. Mm-hmm. He's starring as Sir Gawain, who's somebody in the King Arthur mythologies. Sir Gawain is one of the Knights of the Round Table. Okay. And so he's playing Sir Gawain, and so many people are losing their, you know what, because they're like, he's brown. There never would have been a brown knight in King Arthur's Round Table, which, first of all, it's a myth. Like, if you can accept a green knight who's basically like a forest god, but you can't accept a brown person being a knight, like, why is your idea of reality such that you could accept dragons and mermaids and magic, but not a brown person as a knight? I think that's a little like... Yeah. And but also somebody was like, oh yeah, they didn't invent brown people or black people until the Victorian era. You're right. Like they were all just like huddling somewhere in Africa.
They were waiting
like what
to
were
come
they?
out.
Yeah, like no, they were just walking around like the rest of us.
Yeah, and if you want to get really ticky-tack, I mean, like, okay, so we're talking about, hey, Sir whatever, who's with, you know, the Round Table or whatever.
Yeah.
You probably can't pick, you know, Clive Owen from the UK, or you probably can't pick, you know...
why are we having white people play Jesus still, too? Like,
exactly,
let's go there.
Exactly.
This is a very nice light.
If you're going to really get ticky-tack about
historical accuracy, then you have to change a lot of things.
Oh, yeah. Then, I mean, and I think they do that in some positive ways, some like... I think it's probably good to have an actual Asian person play Mulan, for example.
Yeah, I believe in that too. I think that's very important. Representation is important. Yeah. But not just representation, like who's getting hired to play these jobs?
Right.
Like somebody's getting paid to play this, so it should probably be...
Right, but...
Like don't put a skinny person in a fat suit when there's fat actors who can be paid to play a fat person.
Right. And the only question is like, it does get kind of confusing.
Yeah.
Because then, you know, how much do you have to drill down? Like I was just saying, like, okay, this character was in the ancient realm somewhere in like the Middle East. So do we have to actually find someone specifically from there?
Sure.
Or, you know.
Well, and a lot of that depends on like who's in charge, who's running the project. Because if it's a white guy from Universal Studios, I think they're gone now. I don't know who else. But like if it's some white Harvey Weinstein type guy, like do I trust him to make a nuanced decision about race and representation, or is it going to be another brown director who is going to have that kind of a...
Did you see
I'm a party pooper, always about representation. I'm the worst.
Did you see Parasite?
Not yet.
No?
No, I'm way behind on movies.
I am too. I luckily saw it actually with Keaton.
Nice. We just barely watched Interstellar for the first time, finally.
So we're way
behind. Oh, yeah. Oh, but we watched Parks and Rec like 1,000 times.
Well, that's kind of the preliminary. You have to watch that to understand the culture. So you can't watch anything so you see.
Probably like at the end of last year, I finally felt this like craving to watch movies again that I hadn't seen. Mm-hmm. That I hadn't felt in a long time. And it's because I had just absolutely scraped the bottom of my creative well. It was just dry. And I needed to just fill it. So that's what I'm doing this year is like watching, like we watched Knives Out. I finally saw the new Tomb Raider.
I haven't seen the new Tomb Raider. I've seen Knives Out.
I'm garbage for Tomb Raider, so just garbage. It was good.
Yeah?
Yeah. The first movie came out when I was in 8th grade. My dad had already been playing the video game like all through elementary school, so it was on constantly. And she was like, what I wanted to be.
Yeah. Angelina Jolie?
Yeah, Angelina Jolie. Yeah.
I've never seen any of them.
They're so cheesy. They really are. The new one was good though. If you like an action movie with like dodgy archaeology, like
I'll just watch Indiana Jones. I'm just kidding.
But that's like pulpy and like very tongue-in-cheek, winky at the audience at all times.
That's
and
true.
Tomb Raider like takes itself very seriously.
Right. Do you like Knives Out?
I loved Knives Out.
Me too.
I thought it was great.
I did not think I was gonna like it, I'll admit it.
Really?
I went in, just like saw the trailer for it and was kind of thinking like, maybe this is trying too hard to be like a specific type of movie.
Yeah, like a murder mystery, like a cozy murder mystery. Yeah.
It's like cozy on in, like strap in. We got another wonderful murder mystery for you today. And like, who is it? Oh, it's the uncle with the candlestick in the laboratory.
Yeah.
But I actually really liked it, and it's not very often that I get a twist that actually surprises me, and it was good.
Yeah. was really good.
I don't want to spoil it.
You know what though? No, I won't spoil it. Keaton, my brother, is constantly upset with me for reading spoilers before I see movies, but I almost always do.
Yeah, my wife does that too, and it drives me crazy.
Okay, but as a storyteller, I have to say it is a cheap plot twist. If the whole plot is ruined by reading a spoiler, it's bad writing.
No, absolutely.
So I'm like, if it's a good enough movie, I'll be able to see the plot twist and read it beforehand, and then I'll still like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like my litmus test.
I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
Well, the thing for me would be, it's like I look at basketball. I'm like, well, it's a cheap favorite player, the guy who just has a really good dunk. Mm-hmm. Because people who watch basketball are like, well, yeah, he had a good dunk, but he had a terrible game.
Yeah.
So I get that. Yeah, that makes sense. But I'm a sucker for like a really good twist, like Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man.
Yeah.
Somehow that didn't get spoiled for me.
Really?
Over like 2 decades of people spoiling it, when I actually saw it, I was like,
you didn't see it when it came out then? You waited a long time.
No.
You were like a child when it came out.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, think about Haley Joel Osment's like quite a bit older than me, and he was a little kid in that movie, so.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I guess because I saw it right around when it came out, and I think I was in 6th or 7th grade. So yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
you're like 7 years younger than me, because you're the same age as Keaton.
Yeah, we're the same age. Something that you said that actually sparked my curiosity. Yes. What do you do to fill your well with creative energy as a writer, especially?
My number one thing, like the thing that when it is taken away from me or I can't get to it, I feel unbalanced, is taking a walk by myself. And if it's not by myself, then my kid needs to be in her stroller and I have my headphones on and no one is talking to me. So I can just walk and process. That's like my number one well filler. And I will sometimes listen to podcasts, sometimes music, sometimes audiobooks, depends on what exactly I need. If it's really dire, like if I really have been working hard, like to the point of burnout, that's mostly when I need my well refilled. I'll reread old favorites, because then I don't have to think too hard about processing a new story. Sometimes I don't want new input. I don't need to be entertained. Mm-hmm. I just need some fuel to like get me through. Because creating it's not like manual labor, but it's exhausting.
Absolutely.
Every day.
There's actually a scientific explanation for what you just said. I just read about it. It's a book called High Performance Habits, and I wish I knew the exact science behind it.
Yeah.
But hundreds and hundreds of people have said that that's what they do to fill their
They
go for a walk.
Yeah.
Thomas Edison said he would just go shower.
Yeah. The shower is like also the other great secret. Like halfway through the day, if I need to feel like it's a new day, I'll shower and change my socks.
Well, and that's super interesting, because you would think to produce more, create more, you would, let me start creating, which I'm sure that's part of the process, but they were saying, I'll butcher the science behind it, but deliberate thought is a specific wave in your brain.
Yeah, you need your subconscious.
Yes, and your subconscious thought is actually filled with ideas and information that doesn't literally serve you in the moment. And so if you can have yourself be occupied enough to keep your mind floating, but not so much that it's focused, you can get your most creative energy.
Yep. So that's why I cook every night, because my hands are busy, but my brain is not. It's working. Driving is another thing. I can't stop to write something down, so I won't. So my brain knows, like, oh, let's go into subconscious back burner mind. Yeah. Part of the writing class that I do is a lot about accessing the subconscious, and I compare it to like a child handing you very strange gifts all the time, because you don't always know what to do with whatever your subconscious hands you. Sometimes you're like, thanks, it's a rock.
Cool.
Don't know what I'm gonna do with this.
Is this picture of me?
Yeah. Exactly. Like, thanks. And
I don't have 6 fingers.
Yeah, exactly. And you might find a good use for it, but you might not. But you have to always say yes, because otherwise that poor little child will be hurt if you're not taking its gifts. So it'll stop giving it to you.
Yeah. That is a really good example. Yeah. Because I found, personally at least, when I disregard any kind of creative instinct, it's less likely to come back.
Yep.
My brain's like, oh, we don't need that. Yep. Which I always forget. Which one's the creative brain? Right brain? The right brain's creative. Yeah. So the left brain's like, okay, we'll take over.
Yep.
Let's go get a spreadsheet or something.
Yep.
Yeah. But what was I just saying?
I don't know. Subconscious.
Oh yeah, the subconscious.
Creative instincts.
Yeah, I found, and not just creativity, but especially creativity, if my mind is sending me a signal that requires some kind of at least acknowledgement or action, and I don't acknowledge it or act on it, that's kind of like, oh, we don't need that in the future. You don't need to go say hi to that person.
Yeah.
You know, I think it also feeds into social anxiety, because your instinct will tell you like, oh, there's my best friend from 2nd grade. I should go say hi to them. And then for whatever reason you don't, you betray your instinct.
Yeah.
Then the next time you see that friend, your brain will be like, oh, last time
we avoided it and it was better. Yeah.
So to like send a surge of nerves or whatever, like, oh, I don't want to say hi to them. And I think my theory is at least that you probably have better perspective on this, but that happens creatively as well.
I think so. Well, so much of creative work feels like play, and so it's really easy to disregard it or say, I don't have time for that, or that's so impractical right now, or especially like we monetize everything in America in 2020. So if you can't find a way to make money off of it, sometimes you think, oh, that's not worth my time because I'm not a professional, so I'm never going to sell it. So why should I do it? But oh God, it's so important to be creative. Like so important.
So you do writing. Do you do anything else that really stokes your creative fire?
I mean, reading feels creative. Reading other genres that I don't write. I read widely and watch TV and listen to music and podcasts and all that pretty widely. I don't think there's one genre that I turn my nose up at. I'll read and watch anything. I walk, I bake. I'm terrible at taking breaks when I should take a break. And that always gets me in trouble.
I think that's kind of the trope, the creative genius trope, is like late at night, you know, their hair is crazy and like, no, I have to finish this.
That's me every night. I'm supposed to be done with work every night at 9 and it's always like 9:30. I'm like, just a second, I'm almost done, I swear, just a few more minutes. Yeah.
That's hard. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. Like if you're in the zone.
Well, I think it's creatively and the zone is like irrelevant because if I waited until I was in the zone, I'd never get any work done. The zone is like a great little gift. Like every once in a while you get in the zone and it's like a little rocket boost. But most of the time it's just like nose to the grindstone and it's awful and you just do it anyway.
Yeah.
But it's creative work, but it's also just like freelance work. Like there's no, and your wife probably knows about this too. Like if the work needs to be done and you're done with your 8 hours for the day, like too bad. If you're a freelancer, too bad. You have irregular hours, which means you are always on, which means you are never off. Yeah. And so, you know, like it's great. And it's great. It's been great for me to be a working parent, to just be like, I don't have set office hours or set hours that I work. It's just kind of, it's like all out guerrilla warfare. It's like anytime, any place, anyway, little 5-minute bursts here and there, and you get it done. But that means that it's really hard for me to step away. Yeah. It's hard for me to be awake and not working.
Well, I can imagine the pros of being, well, I have time freedom, but the times being, I don't have time freedom. The cons, I mean. Cons being I don't have time freedom because now I have the flexibility to work when I want, but I don't have the flexibility to live when I want. Like I'm working all the time.
It's tough. It's really hard. It helps that it's like my favorite thing in the world and my dream job. And that's not very many people get to do their dream job. So it does help that I love writing more than anything. Don't tell my family. But I do. It's like, okay, no, I love them like more. It's like this. And they know it. Yeah. It's pretty close.
Interesting.
And I was lucky.
What would you say to someone who's just starting that wants to be a writer?
If you want to be a writer, you better be writing.
Right. That's actually really good advice that most people don't take.
There's a lot of people who I think have an idea in their head about what being a writer means, and they like the identity of being a writer. And that's fine, but eventually you gotta write. And the sooner you do it, the sooner you will get out of the crappy, clear the exhaust pipe phase of creating, where you have to learn, you know? And it's hard. It's hard. There's years that you have to go through. It's like an apprenticeship, you know? You have to learn how to not write crappy stuff. And the only way to do that is to like hurry and get started so that you can get all that out of the way.
Get the crap done.
Get the crap done. Honestly, okay, 2 things. One very practical piece of advice, which is learn how to finish things. So anything you start, reach the end. Even if you decide, I don't want to work on this anymore, I'm going to kill them all in the next chapter. Do it. Just bring it to a close so that you can be in the habit of finishing things. You can't really assess a project, if it's still a work in progress, it needs to be done so that you can assess it and move on to the next. It's kind of like keeping tabs open in your brain. You don't want too many open tabs in your brain. I have too many. I have so many open tabs in my brain, so don't be like me ever. Just finish your stuff. Just get to the end. It never gets easier. It gets harder with every project you write because you get better. It's like the video game from hell. Every time you keep leveling up and it keeps getting harder. Yes, and you just think, I should know how to do this by now, but you don't. You always only know how to write whatever book you're working on. And as soon as you solve it, it's done and you move on to the next. But the other thing that I will say is writing, and probably any creative profession, but especially writing, is a career in which you are always going to have to do more work than you will get credit for. And that's really hard, especially if you're of the gold star public elementary school validation generation. It's hard. So you have to create your own validation because you don't get to show up on the doorstep of every reader who buys your book and say, did you know that this book is 50,000 words, but it actually took me 200,000 words to get it right? They would be like, I don't know what that means. I don't care. It's just about the end product. And that can be maddening to just know that you will work so hard and no one will know and no one will care. So you have to care. And that's it. And it's hard.
That is hard.
Yeah.
And I think...
Not like brain surgery hard. Like, if my job is a joke. Like, if there's a zombie apocalypse, I have nothing to offer society. Like, I'm sorry. I have nothing.
No, I know exactly why that's hard.
But it's hard.
I think a lot of people grow up expecting to be rewarded for effort.
Yeah.
And that's not really the way that it works.
No.
Especially with something like a book.
Yeah, and the publishing industry is cutthroat and mean and scary and hard and it is all about the dollars and it can feel, I don't know, it can be very deadening to be a part of if you don't find some other way to if it's your writing should be this big, huge circle and publishing should be this tiny little part inside your larger relationship with writing. And I ebb and flow out of that over the years. Last year was a train wreck. It was just the hardest year I've had in my career. And I'm still feeling the ramifications of it. And, but my relationship with writing is bigger than that. And so I've been able to bounce back.
How do you manage the balance between I write for myself and what I love, and I am self-validating, and I want to be validated by having it published and having people like it and getting criticism. How do you find the balance between those two?
I mean, I do write what I want, and I think there's a difference between writing what you want content-wise, this is the story I want to tell, these are the plot points I want to do, this is how I want to build the book, versus quality. Because you can have a really good marketable fantasy, but if the quality is awful, nobody wants to read it. On the other hand, if you have a really niche-y, strange, bizarrely put together, weird book, content-wise, but the quality is up here, people want to read it. So mitigating between the two is helpful. I have an incredibly close relationship with my editor at my publishing company. Not everybody has that. I'm very lucky. She loves me. And so I trust her to tell me if something's not working. And she has had to do that. I had to rewrite the Bigfoot Files completely from scratch with 8 weeks until the deadline.
Really?
Yeah, it was, and that's not just I had to write the draft and then she had to go through and revise it. And then we had to do line edits and then we had to do copy edits. We were emailing back and forth, up until the minute that it had to be submitted, kind of stressful. But I trust her implicitly. And if I didn't trust her, it would be harder. But I would find somebody else to be on my team to trust. I don't know. I don't worry so much about if what I'm writing is sellable. That's my publisher's job.
Right.
That is not my job.
Yeah.
That's why I have a publisher.
Right. They kind of take your vision and say, hey, you have a great vision. Let me find a way to position it for the public.
Yep. Yeah. It really is me saying, here's the book, figure out how to sell it. Bye. Working on the next one. And they do their best.
Was it harder to do the very first one because making those relationships, getting publisher, editor?
No, not for me. My first book, well, and not for a lot of people, because the first book you have...
Can I see it?
Yes. The first book you have years, you have your whole life to write it. Oh, yes. there you go. There's my debut.
I was there. I remember you did it at the wedding venue.
Yeah.
I came and got it. It was yellow back then, wasn't it? Is this a new? This is the same exact.
It's the same one.
Oh, it's the back.
Oh, there's stuff.
It just has like yellow
that on the
kind
back,
of colors. And,
yeah, I think we had like yellow balloons all over. I was gonna say
the actual book itself.
The naked book is yellow, and it's in paperback now. I have my paperbacks stashed somewhere. I have like fun treasures hidden inside there that I don't know. No, the first book is usually easy just because so much is unknown in a great way. Like, you don't know how the sausage is made yet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you don't know all these publishing ins and outs, and so there's a little pressure. The second book, it's pretty infamously called sophomore slump. Second books are hard because you kind of feel like the whole world is watching you write, and you have expectations to either fulfill if your first book does well, or else rise above if your first book sucked, and it just turns into this mental, I don't know why I did a triangle, like this trap.
Yeah. I could see that.
In your head. It's hard to recreate the energy that you have when you are writing your first book, especially if you're like, because my first book was so seamless. Like, I wrote it in about 10 days. Like, it was just very, very, and I do write fast, to be fair, but that is fast to write a book, just FYI. I got an agent right away. I had 4 agents offer. I think I only got a handful of rejections, like not a lot of rejections. A lot of people wanted this book. And then when we went out on submission to publishers, we had 4 publishers who were interested, and they went to auction for it. So I had and then once Candlewick bought it, my editor was able to, a lot of people don't know this, but when a book is acquired by a publisher, then the editor's job is to sell it in-house and basically convince everybody to put marketing dollars behind it, to say like, hey, this book I acquired is the shiz. We want to plaster it everywhere. And she did that for Hour of the Beast. So it was pushed to elite title. Like, all of that was so smooth. And so I had this sort of meteoric rise, and now not so, it's fine. It's just, I hit some speed bumps.
And this was the second one, right?
So then the second one, and the second one's very different. It's kind of like a steampunky, historical, treasure, piratey, sharky book about death. Like you do, it's definitely the book of my heart. I literally wrote a list of everything that 10-year-old Lindsay would have wanted to read in a book, and then made a book out of it. But it was hard. And part of it, I was pregnant and so sick and trying to just focus on the words, and I just could not. So that was a lot harder, but I'm very proud of how that one turned out. That one is definitely Lindsay in a book.
I love that.
Not that Bees isn't, but it just was different.
Making your younger self proud.
Making my younger self proud. Yeah. Oh yeah, she would have loved to find that book. Yeah.
And then what's this one? I didn't know that you actually had written a third one.
So this one came out in 2018. So that's called The Bigfoot Files, about a mother and daughter who go to find Bigfoot. And the mother is a believer and the daughter is not. It's sort of like Gilmore Girls meets Bigfoot. It's good.
The ultimate combo.
The ultimate, yeah. I basically, here, you can read the dedication, and then maybe it will make more sense. It's for Finley.
Oh, that's
because
cool.
Do you remember her Bigfoot phase when she was younger? Do you have any memory of that? She would wear that explorer's vest and look out the window when she was 3 and be like, I'm looking for Bigfoot. Be like, how are you not terrified of Bigfoot? But she was obsessed with Bigfoot. She went through a Bigfoot obsession. So that was the one that I had to rewrite, and that was fine. And then I actually have 3 more books under contract with Candlewick. One was supposed to come out in 2019 and didn't, because this one got pushed back. So then the next one got pushed back. And then I had to rewrite that one as well. And then my husband lost his job at the end of 2018. And I completely switched gears and took on ghostwriting. And that's what I did all last year. I hardly worked on my own stuff at all last year. I ghost wrote 25 really smutty romance novels for other authors.
What does that mean?
Ghostwriting, it is what it sounds like. You write the novel and they put their name on it. They pay you to write the novel and then they put their name on it.
I had heard of ghostwriting for famous, biographies or speeches, but I don't know.
For people who can't write.
Right, a politician or something.
It's really popular in the self-published romance market because there you have people who are putting out books faster than they can keep up with. There are romance readers who read 3 books a day. It's just this cheap, high churn market. And so these authors are like, okay, I need to have 20 books come out this month. I'm making $100,000 a month, so I'll just pay pennies to these poor, desperate people. So that's what I did last year, and it was horrible. It was awful.
Kind of quelch your creativity?
Oh my God, it was terrible.
Huh.
I've
never heard of that.
I don't like romance, and it was writing like paranormal romance, like bear shifters, like.
Was it kind of sexy though?
No, that could not be further from. So like, it's all about the alpha male right now, which is like what it sounds like, a big tough guy who's like an asshole to. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I should swear. I've been very careful not to swear.
You can swear.
Okay, who's just a big giant asshole to everybody, but the woman is the one who convinces him to like. It's just straightens him out. Yes, it's just so gross.
And it's kind of cliche.
It's so it's cliche for a reason. And I had to sort of like think about the psychology of it and be like, how can I make this okay for me to contribute to? Because this is so gross and just reinforces everything wrong about heterosexual relationships in a lot of ways. Like, talk about gender norms. But then I thought, okay, there are women reading this who probably have alpha male asshole husbands and who would like to read a story where it turns out okay. So.
Right, where I'm guessing in the end of the book, there's a lot of the woman kind of conquers the overbearing man.
That is what it is. She tames him.
Yeah, women. I'm sure women who are with guys like that would fantasize about
exactly. So I had to really find my empathy for readers in order to do it without trying to upset the tropes that are expected.
Do you have those books?
No. Oh no.
Like, they're not. Is your name anywhere on them?
Nowhere on them.
They kind of just like slip you a $1,000 bill under your door.
Basically, yep. I would write. Yeah.
How did you even find that? The dark web?
The dark web, literally the dark web. There is a sort of secret forum for self-published authors who are interested in self-publishing in order to make big money. They're not writers who love writing necessarily. Some of them are making so much money writing the grossest stuff, and that's fine. Like, I've made my peace with that. There's some nasty stuff on and that's fine. They're making a lot of money. That's where I found it. That's where I found the job.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's fine. I'll blow your mind too. One of the other niches that I wrote was called reverse harem. So what do you think that is?
I have no idea.
What's a harem?
I don't know what a harem is.
Harem is one man with many women.
Oh.
So reverse harem.
You might need to slip me the titles to those. For research.
Yeah.
Purposes.
Yeah.
So one woman with many men.
Yes. But it's not like.
Not a gangbang.
Not a gangbang. Okay. Although there are sometimes. There's definitely sex scenes, and that's very like I had to choreograph like who's where, who's doing what to who.
Wait, who's on top?
Yeah, it's a lot of dicks to shuffle, to be honest. Like
it's a diagram.
It is like seriously.
That's really funny.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
But
it makes sense.
Again, I had to kind of think like, why does this exist? What kind of reader would want to read this? And then I realized, because I had to read some like research, and then I was like, okay, there are women who fantasize about multiple men. Sacrificing sort of their own ideas about what a manly man does in a relationship in order to be with her. So 3 men with 1 woman you would think would get very territorial and fight to like have her choose one. And actually it kind of started as a backlash from Twilight. Do you remember Twilight?
Yes.
Do you recall Twilight? So Twilight, it's the love triangle, right?
Uh-huh.
Bella has to choose Edward or Jacob. Well, I guess there were a bunch of people who were like, she shouldn't have to choose. She should be able to be with both of them. And they can both let their guards down and realize that she is a person, not a salad bar. And so she doesn't have to share herself with us. She can actually be with both of us.
Okay.
And the idea is not like, okay, sometimes she's with this guy and it's not like joint custody. It's like, this is the relationship. And sometimes you have the men who are in a relationship with each other too. So then it turns into this big, like, I'm like not into this. But
you
like,
do see the reverse of that more often.
You do see the reverse of it.
In media, like a guy with multiple women.
Yes. Which fulfills a fantasy for men who read that too. And I get that.
Yeah.
So that's what I did last year. That's what I spent my time doing until the end of the year when I had like a full on, you're fine. Do you need to clap to...
Oh, no.
Okay.
You're good.
I had like...
And I usually give myself a couple of buffer minutes.
I get it.
Just to be safe. So.
No, I had like a full-on meltdown. I took our family to Disneyland last year because that was like the one. I was like, okay, I'm going to pay my bills with ghostwriting and every month squirrel away some money to go somewhere very happy.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we did that, and then I came home and had like a full-on breakdown. I was like, I cannot do this anymore because I was so behind on all of my own stuff. I'm a Slytherin. I want to like...
A Slytherin?
I am such a Slytherin. I want to do all the things and accomplish all the things.
I'm probably a Slytherin too.
You might be. Yeah. Don't let the hype fool you. It's not about being racist or...
courageous Gryffindor.
No, it's about being ambitious. It's about putting ambitions first. Your ambitions first. So
that's why I fear even going to the Sorting Hat because I can't handle, the truth.
Handle the truth? Oh, no. Yeah, anyway, then I started the writing course instead. And
I love that.
And I was able to quit ghostwriting like that week.
As far as,
yes.
I want to make sure that anyone who's listening can read your books and go on your course. So let me see. Yes. Where can they find these books?
Well...
Bigfoot Files?
Bigfoot Files is the most recent one.
Okay.
They are kid-friendly. They're technically middle grade, so they're for like ages 10 and up. They're all on Audible.
Oh, they're on Audible?
Oh, they're all audiobooks, and they're great.
Oh.
I got to help pick the narrators and everything.
Really?
Yeah,
cool.
It's great.
That's awesome. Let's see if
so
you
they're
can
all
see.
on, oh, yes.
I'll make this like the thumbnail so that people
they're
can...
with a major publisher, so they're definitely on Amazon. You should order from your independent bookstore instead so that we can keep local businesses alive because Amazon is coming to crush us all.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. They might be in your Barnes & Noble. Your Barnes & Noble will definitely be able to order them. They were in a Barnes & Noble at one point, but it's been a while, and Barnes & Noble shuffles their stock.
Right.
So wherever you buy books, you can find them.
Okay.
Or you can just Google them.
Buy them local bookstore. You can buy them on Amazon.
Yep, they're everywhere.
And what about your course?
They're in Romania. They're in China. They're in Turkey, I think.
They're in Turkey, yeah.
You were there. You saw them. Thanks.
Yeah, I was traveling through and I for sure saw them.
Hour of the Beach just got put in the Scholastic catalog, which is kind of cool.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
That is awesome.
Yeah, they like me.
That's so cool. And you have more books coming out.
I have 3 more books coming out.
If people want to join your course, how do they?
It's enrolling now, and it will be until like April 1st-ish. I mean, it's for people who want to write.
Sure.
It's not a great course if you're like...
want to lift weights.
Don't join my course for that. You will be very frustrated. My website's lindsayegarbooks.com, and it's on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thanks for being on the Reed Fletcher podcast.
Thanks for having me.
That was awesome.
Drinking tea and eating cakes.